Hey guys, this is Carrie, and in this video we're going to be making another canvas project where we have shapes randomly appear all over the canvas. But the goal of this project is going to be to learn about a really important tool in computer science called a function. So we've been using functions throughout the whole year. Many of those functions already come with JavaScript. Like the first one that we learned was an alert function. And then we learned a prompt function. Later we did things like console.log, or we did things like pretty much like everything we've been doing this year has been learning the functions within JavaScript. And the functions are kind of like the things that the computer can do. Now, a lot of the times, we're going to want to write our own functions to teach the computer how to do some new things. And functions are a really important tool because they allow us to package together a procedure or a routine. So I like to come up with an analogy for this for what we do in our regular life. We learn procedures and routines in our regular life all the time. So one procedure that many of us know is the tie my shoes procedure, or the tie my shoes function. The way that this would look if we were teaching JavaScript how to tie my shoes would be, we would say, hey JavaScript, I'm teaching you a new function called tie my shoes. And all the functions are going to have parentheses here, and we'll see where that comes up a little bit later on. But you've seen that already in a lot of the work that we've done this year. And so to tie my shoes basically is this group of code. And we always use these curly parentheses to group code, whether we're doing an if statement or a loop. So tying my shoes would be this group. And we'd have to go through these steps in order: pull the laces, tie the X knot, make one loop, wrap loop with other string, pull loop through, and then tighten the loops. And I think this is a recipe, a procedure, a function for how to tie my shoes. So let's see how this comes up in our new project in JavaScript. So I'm going to create a brand new REPL, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and I'm going to call it random canvas stuff. For our HTML page, we're only going to have the HTML canvas. So what that means is don't delete the whole thing, just delete the starter text that we don't use, the same thing that we always delete. Actually, in addition to the canvas, I'm going to put an H1 on this one, and I'm just going to say random canvas project. Because we're going to be using randomness in it. It's not random because it's like out of nowhere. It's just going to be random shapes appearing all over the canvas in different spots using the random number generator. And then I also need the canvas if I'm going to be drawing on it. So we're going to put a width on that canvas, 800, a height on it of 600, just because I always choose those values. And I'll give it an ID of canvas so that we can select it with the JavaScript easily. Pop it open in a new tab. I see the H1. I don't see the canvas. And the reason why is the canvas is blank right now. So in order to make the canvas visible, I'm going to throw some CSS on it. So canvas will have a border of 2 pixels, solid black. That way it's visible. I also want to put it in the center of the web page, so I'll center it the same way that we center images with display block, margin auto. So now we should be able to see that in the center of the web page. To center the H1, we'll do H1 text align center. Refreshed a few times because we're coding so fast we can't catch up. Okay, looking good. So now basically the goal of the project is going to be to put random shapes all over this page. So sometimes rectangles, sometimes circles. And in order to do that, I am going to use some of the code from our Google Classroom assignment where we introduced this. So whenever we want to draw on the canvas, our first 2 steps are going to be to get the canvas in the JavaScript. So I'm going to use the same style of code that we always use where we get something with its ID. I'm also going to get an important feature of the canvas, which is get the CTX, the context. And this is the tool that's built into JavaScript that will allow us to draw on the canvas. So now that I've got those 2 tools, I want to start drawing some shapes on my canvas. So thinking about drawing shapes, we've been basically seeing that whenever we want to draw a shape, we have to use these groups of code. And I'm going to start off with circles. So I'm going to grab the 4 lines of code to draw a circle. And I'm going to put those lines here. Now, I'm going to want to create hundreds of circles. And I'm starting to feel like this procedure to create a circle is a little bit abstract. It doesn't feel like making a circle to me. So I think this is a useful moment where we can take this idea of these are the 4 steps to make a circle, the same way that these were the steps to tie my shoes. So why do I keep thinking about it step by step? It's not a very human way to think about this. Let me think about this as one big procedure that together these 4 lines of code draw a circle. So I am going to cut these out again, and I'm going to say function draw circle. And I'm going to put those back. Now I'm thinking that all my circles should probably start off, I'm just going to start off with black circles. So whenever I tell the computer to draw a circle now, it's going to set its fill style to black. It's going to start to draw a shape. It's going to draw an arc. And I think for my circles, I'm always going to want full circles. So I'll just make it so that the start angle is always 0. And the end angle is 2 times math.pi. Okay, math.pi. And then it will fill in the inside of that arc that it's drawn. So here's where the parentheses become really useful for drawing a circle. I'm going to want to have circles that are at different x and y locations on the grid, as well as different radiuses. And so I'm going to want to plug in different numbers there. And so in math class, you probably learned functions like this last year, f of x equals x squared. And when you put a number inside of the parentheses, it meant to plug it in. Well, we're going to use the exact same idea for our function here, which is whenever we draw a circle, I'm going to plug in an x, a y, and an r value. And whatever numbers I put here, here, and here will get plugged into these spots here. So let's see if anything happened on our canvas. Nothing happened. I don't think I have any errors in the JavaScript console. Nice, things are looking good. Now the reason why nothing appeared is we've taught the computer what it means to draw a circle, but we haven't drawn a circle yet. So to draw a circle, what we're going to do is we're going to say down here, now that we've defined the functionality draw a circle, we can just write draw a circle, and I'm going to put it at the center, 400, 300, with a radius of 100. I'm going to draw a second circle, and this one is going to be a little bit above that one. It's going to be 400, 200, because the lower y value, right, on a lower y value on our y-axis is actually higher up. And I'm going to make this one have a radius of 50. And I'm going to draw one more circle above that. I'm going to draw this last circle 50 above, so it will be 150 here. And this one will have a radius of 25. So I'm expecting to have the computer now run this procedure, draw 3 different circles. Let's see how it looks. Nice. I was thinking of kind of like a little snowman or something like that, but it looks like maybe I didn't do it very well. Let's see. So, yeah, I think that's right. I think my mistake was, I see what my mistake was. But I think it basically made the 3 circles. And if we wanted to separate them out a little bit, we can change these x coordinates around a little bit. So now we'd have those 3 circles in 3 different locations. And we can basically draw circles wherever we want. So this is a pretty powerful tool, this ability to draw a function, because once we teach the computer how to draw a circle, it allows us to draw circles wherever we want. So I'm going to ask you guys later in the lesson to create a function to draw a rectangle. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to change around this draw a circle function so that we can actually draw random circles. So I'm going to actually build on top of this idea of drawing a circle. And I'm going to create a function which is to draw random circle. So when I draw a random circle, instead of plugging in the x, y, and r values, I actually want to create random numbers for the x, y, and r values. So in order to create random numbers, I need to go to the toolbox and bring in the same function that we always use to generate random numbers. Now, actually, this should be a little bit easier to understand now that we've introduced this idea of functions into our lesson, which is whenever we want to create a procedure, we write function. So this procedure teaches the computer how to generate a random number between any minimum and any maximum number that the user puts in the parentheses. And that's really similar to how we created a procedure to draw a circle at any x, y, and r value that the user puts in the parentheses. So we need to do this here. So I'm going to create an x value. And my x value is going to be a random number. So I'm going to use the generate random procedure that we defined here between 0 and 800. And the reason why I chose 800 is the width of the canvas goes from 0 to 800. I'm also going to choose a y value from 0 to 600. I'm also going to choose an r value from, let's see, the radius should probably, this is 25, 50, and 100. I like kind of the up to 50 range, so maybe I'll do a random number for the radius from 10 to 50. I don't think I want any radiuses that start at 0 because those would be, invisible. So to draw a random circle, we'll generate an x, y, and r value. The next step would be to draw the circle. So I'm going to draw a circle at whatever x value was created here, plug it into the procedure, and then plug that in as the x value. Whatever y value is created here, plug that in for y, plug that in for y. And then whatever r value is created here, plug that in to this function, and plug that in here. So I'm going to delete my specific circles, and I'm going to say that instead of drawing those specific circles, I want to draw random circles. And you'll notice that my random circle doesn't need any input values. The reason why is I don't have to tell it what x, y, and r are. As part of my procedure, it creates x, y, and r. So here we go. Draw a random circle, draw another random circle, draw another random circle, draw another random circle, and draw another random circle. So I'm expecting 5 random circles. Let's see if it works. Cool. And every time I draw it, I get 5 different random circles. It's kind of awesome. So I'm thinking that in order to make these feel a little bit more random, rather than always make them black, I could make them have different colors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this approach that we've been looking at in this project, which is to create a procedure that generates a random color. So I'm just going to remind us by looking up color picker here on Google that there are many ways to represent a color. It looks like this color here has a hex code. That looks pretty random, but I'm not sure how I'm going to generate these things. Like it has letters and numbers. I think the easiest one of these for me to generate will be the RGB value. So one of the things that we talked about earlier this year, kind of in our randomness problems, is that if we want to change the color of something, colors in computer science are created by mixing red, green, and blue lights. And so if we generated a random amount of red, a random amount of green instead of 168, and a random amount of blue instead of 82, we could use that to make random colors. So let me try to build a random color function. So below generate random, I'm going to say function, generate color. And it's going to be a group of code. Now in order to generate a color, I'm going to need to create a red, green, and blue amount at random. Now for these, the maximum possible value for each amount of color goes from the possible value goes from 0 to 255. And later in the year, we're going to learn why the maximum value is 255. But for now, what we're going to say is, for it to be truly random, the red amount should be equal to generate a random number from 0 to 255. The green amount should be the same. And the blue amount should be the same. Or they're not going to be the same value. The blue amount, green amount, and red amount are all going to be random numbers from 0 to 255. Now to put these together to make our final color, we're going to say let color equal. And the way that we need to specify this color is going to be like red, green, blue, parentheses, and then whatever numbers. So for this one, it would be 50, 168, 82. 50, 168, 82. But we don't want these specific numbers in the red, green, and blue spots. What we're going to do instead is, instead of 50, we'll take this string, add in the red amount, and then add on the rest. And this will plug in the red amount instead of 50. We want to do the same thing with the 168. So I'm going to end the string after the comma. I'm going to add in the green amounts. I'm going to put the start of the string. So this was going to say take RGB, parenthesis, put the red amount, then a comma, then the green amount, then a comma, then the blue amount, and then the final parenthesis. So together, this should make a random color. And now we have to introduce the final thing with functions. Some functions, like drawing a circle, just do what, like the whole procedure and everything is kind of done. Other functions, like the generate random function, create a number that I might want to use somewhere else. And so you'll see that the final step of the generate random function is to return out information. And what the return keyword does is it outputs the value so that we can use it somewhere else. So the way that we're going to use that for the color is, now that we've gone through all of this work, generating 3 random numbers and creating this string, we're going to want that color to be accessible somewhere else. So I'm going to return out the color. And what this will do is it will make it, when we run this function, it's going to go through all of these steps. And then just like in math class where we output a y value, it's going to output the color so that we can use it in another location. All right, so here we go. We need to modify what it means to draw a circle. So when we draw a circle, instead of always making the circle black, what we can say here is, drawing a circle, we should also tell it what color to draw the circle. And then whatever color we put there, it could be red or something else, we'll make the fill style that color. So now we need to upgrade our draw random circle function as well. So our circle is going to need an x, y, and r value, but we're also going to need to plug in a color. And now I could plug in red, and then it would plug in red for color, and then the fill style would always be red. Let's just confirm that this works. Oop. Unexpected string. I'm glad I checked that. Let's see. Draw a circle. X, Y, R, color. I think it's okay. Let's see what's going on here. Line 19. I left off a plus sign here. Maybe you guys already caught that. We have to add in the parenthesis. It wasn't this string that was unexpected. It was here. I have to add on the parenthesis. All right, let's see if it works now. Okay, so now we've got 5 red circles. And if I changed this input to blue, it would plug blue in for color, and then color would be blue. So now it will be 5 blue circles. But instead of using these specific colors, since it's going to be a random circle, I would like my procedure to be, let's create a color variable that's going to be whatever is outputted by this generate color function. And then whatever color is generated here, it's going to look like RGB number, comma number, comma number. Plug that in here. And I don't want to put it in quotes anymore, because color is now the variable that stands for the result of running this procedure. So now what we should have is we should have 5 circles, random x, y, and r values, random colors. Pretty cool. So this is looking good. Now, this is great with 5 circles, but I want to generate 100 or 500 circles. So the easiest way to do that is to write a while loop. So I'm going to say let counter equal 0, because we've got 0 circles to start with. Well, that counter is less than 500. I'll make 500 circles. Draw a random circle. And then make the counter equal the counter plus 1. And this last line is really important, because if you forget this last line, your code will break down, because your loop will never end, and you'll have billions of circles being made. So let's see how it looks when we make 500 circles. Wow, that looks pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with that. And you can change this to any number that you want. So we can make 100 circles, and it should look a little less packed, yeah, with 100 circles. So you can change that to whatever number you like, and keep that there. So I hope that this new philosophy, this new idea about programming, where instead of like just thinking about it as one continuous section of code, we create little small functions like generating a color that we use later, or drawing a circle that we use later. And we build on top of these ideas to create more and more sophisticated functionality in our program. I hope that that's, the power of this is clearer, because it helps me to like read the code. I can see kind of what's going on here. And it also helps me to create functions that are actually useful. So with that in mind, I'd like you guys to create a random rectangle set of functions. So you'll need to create a draw rectangle function, and then a draw random rectangle function. And maybe you'll want to run that hundreds of times as well. Bye, guys.